The Argueta inquest produces a list of recommendations. Thunder Bay Regional looking to move some patients. And Quebec Falls in line for a major facelift. Good evening and thank you for joining us. The inquest jury examining the death of a young Thunder Bay construction worker has released 9 recommendations aimed at preventing similar tragedies in the future. 24-year-old Gustavo Argueta died 2 years ago while working on the Mackenzie River Bridge. The inquest was expected to last all week, but it concluded last night with all parties saying they're satisfied with the results. Jonathan Wilson reports.
There isn't a day that I don't think about the accident. There isn't a day that I don't miss my brother.
An emotional Walter Argueta testified on the third and final day of the inquest into the death of his brother. Gustavo Argueta was 50 feet up on a bucket lift on a steep slope under the Mackenzie River Bridge when it tipped over. Walter says his brother told him the training involved to operate the bucket lift was inadequate and the topics covered in daily safety meetings were irrelevant. And the jury heard that loud and clear. Among the 9 recommendations, 5 of them deal with better training for young workers using elevated work platforms.
I think that there was a general consensus that if training had been better for this young man, had he known and appreciated the risks that were associated with the job that he was doing, that in fact he would not have put himself in that situation of danger, or had he found himself suddenly in that situation of danger, he would have been able to better extricate himself.
Members of the Argueta family say they were originally reluctant to take part in this inquest and relive the tragedy. But after 3 days here, they say the process was worth it.
I do believe that some of the changes that they're recommending will impact the industry in a better way.
The jury also recommends stronger penalties for altering or disarming safety mechanisms on equipment. Argueta's machine had an alarm which warns the driver about being on an unsafe slope, but that alarm had spray foam in it and the wires had been disconnected. The jury also wants the construction industry to hold toolbox meetings at the start of each workday to discuss workplace objectives and address safety concerns.
The reason why I decided to come was maybe with my insight or me being present would help make some different changes. So no other family has to deal with what we went through, and no other young worker will lose his life at such a young age.
He shouldn't have died, and quite frankly, this inquest today has, I think, produced some very important recommendations that are going to prevent these tragedies in the future.
Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
The Thunder Bay Regional Hospital is once again in a gridlock situation when it comes to the space they have available for patients who are admitted. The hospital is over capacity by 60 to 70 patients every day, and that has forced officials to look for additional space in another location. Dr. Mark Henderson is the Executive Vice President of Patient Services. He says they're anticipating a very difficult year ahead. Usually in the summer, they don't experience an overload of patients, but this year that is not the case. Henderson explains that ever since the interim long-term care facility closed its doors last October, the hospital experienced an influx of patients. They're now looking at taking over one of the floors at McKellar Place. Henderson says they are in talks with Habib Enterprises, and while it's in the very early stages, they are expected to hear more information from the local health integration network next week.
Nurses, more physiotherapists, more occupational therapists, things like that. The existing cadre of doctors we have, we think, could look after these patients. I mean, they're already looking after them now, right? But in alcoves and sunrooms and places like that.
As mentioned, the expansion plans are in the early stages, but hospital staff are hoping that by next week they will have an answer on whether the expansion is feasible. Voters in 5 Ontario ridings have until 9 o'clock tonight to cast ballots in by-elections that are seen as a test of Kathleen Wynne's 6 months as Premier. Observers will be looking to see if voters hold Wynne responsible for issues such as the gas plant scandal that happened under her predecessor Dalton McGuinty. Analysts say PC leader Tim Hudak must take at least one of the 5 ridings to hold off challenges to his leadership. The New Democrats are widely expected to take a Windsor riding. Wynne's Liberals will still lead a minority government regardless of the outcomes of the by-elections. A motorcycle and a car collided today in front of Grandview Mall, right around the lunch hour. Ambulance and fire crews were called to the scene. The man driving the motorcycle was taken into the ambulance, but was released soon after with some minor scratches. The driver of the car was not injured. An investigation into the incident is ongoing, and there is no word on whether any charges will be laid. Meanwhile, Thunder Bay police have now laid charges following a two-vehicle collision at the corner of Algoma and Covette Streets yesterday. A pickup truck and car collided during the lunch hour, resulting in the car being pushed over a sidewalk and into a yard. Police say the driver of the car, a 48-year-old woman, has been charged with a stop sign violation. In other news, Thunder Bay fire investigators say they'll likely never know the cause of a major house fire in Westfort. The blaze broke out Tuesday evening on Home Avenue. Fire investigator Eric Nordlin says they've been able to pinpoint the origin of the fire in the attic area, but the exact cause will have to remain undetermined. He adds there is nothing suspicious about the fire. No one was hurt in the blaze, but total damages are estimated at about $100,000. Communities along Highway 11 west of Fort Frances received some welcome news this week in the form of a $25 million investment by Hydro One. All the required approvals have been obtained, and construction on a new transformer station in the town of Barwick is set to begin. The station will improve the delivery of local electricity and provide more capacity for communities from Rainy River to Fort Frances. Reeve of Chapel Township, Peter Van Heist, says reliability issues have been a concern in the area due to the distance that feeder lines are currently required to travel.
We have had some problem with blackouts, especially in the west end of the district, and this power station being in the middle of the district between Fort Frances and Rainy River will give a stable power supply.
Construction is slated to begin in the coming weeks, with plans for completion in August of 2014. A popular tourist destination is getting a major facelift, and the MNR wants to hear from the public on the upcoming project. Quebec Falls Provincial Park will receive numerous upgrades, which are to begin in the fall. The project involves the demolition of the existing park office and gatehouse buildings and the construction of a new entrance control office. There are also plans to upgrade the septic services and widen the entry road into the park. The entrance to the main parking lot will be moved, and the surrounding area will be finished and restored. The public is being invited to provide their input during a 30-day comment period ending August 31st. Drivers from the Northwood area are once again dealing with long waits and traffic jams along William Street. It's due to the ongoing construction at Golf Links and the Harbour Expressway. The latest closure of the turning lanes is forcing hundreds of drivers to use William Street and Balmoral to access other parts of town. Nate Jones spoke to some of those frustrated drivers today to see how they're coping.
Crazy. Hasn't been too bad today.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
Crazy, not too bad, or terrible. Whatever you want to call it, the Golf Links Junot Corridor project is moving along. But for some people, it's not moving fast enough.
Construction needs to end. It's quite congested. It's very difficult to make a turn.
Other people have suggestions on how to capitalize on the high traffic and long wait times.
You should be selling burgers and hot dogs along here. You make a fortune.
It might be a little late for this reporter to start a fast food career on the side of the road, as the closure will be short-lived. Late next week, the intersection will open again after it's been repaved. Most of the drivers agreed that this project is necessary for the city, and some even have a few suggestions.
I think they could be a little more organized when they do a job, like do a job and finish it off, not pissing around all over the place. That's what I find. We know it has to be done, but sometimes they'll take and start one and then go somewhere else.
Projects like these create jobs and eventually give the city a better route for motorists to use. It seems it's all how you look at it.
Not horrible, but, just got to be patient.
This part of the project will wrap up at the end of next week, and it is said to be the last disruption to the expressway. Phase 1 is expected to be completed in November. Nate Jones, TBT News.
Well, it looks like TransCanada Highway drivers between Nipigon and Thunder Bay will have to make sure they've got enough fuel in their tanks for the trip. As of last week, the 110-kilometer stretch of highway no longer has any gas bars directly along the route. Just 2 years ago, the highway had 4 gas stations between Thunder Bay and Nipigon. But 2 of those businesses were purchased by the province and demolished to make way for the new 4-lane highway. Pass Lake Corner service was removed in late 2011, and the Canyon Country service station in Dorian was taken down soon afterward. Meanwhile, Crystal Beach Variety is no longer located along the highway. Instead, it's about half a kilometer south of the new 4-lane section, which opened last week. And the Pass Lake truck stop was supposed to reopen in late 2012 following some major renovations. But it remains shut, and officials with the Ministry of Transportation say they do not know when or if it plans to reopen. Any new developments along the 4-lane highway are subject to MTO land use and entrance permits. The ministry says there are many crossroads along the highway where a gas bar could be set up, but as of right now, no such projects have been announced. Well, despite the wettest July in over 15 years, the Summer in the Parks concert series continues to be a hot spot on Wednesday nights. Organizers say they've lost only 1 show because of rain, and another had to be shortened. But people continue to show up and enjoy themselves no matter what the weather. Matt Scooby has more.
Armed with their lawn chairs and umbrellas, another huge crowd turned up at Marina Park on Wednesday night for Summer in the Parks. Festivals and events coordinator for the city, John Paul DeRover, has been organizing the concert series for the past 4 years. Even with the lousy weather, he says people have continued to show up in droves.
The event keeps growing. It's something that we've noticed over the past few years. We keep saying, oh, 2,000 people a night, 3,000 people a night. Now it's 4,000 people a night. The event's been growing, and even on nights when there is poor weather, you still have a lot of people showing up at Marina Park, ready with their umbrellas. It's great.
On top of the music, the event features children's activities, concessions, and a community group area. Everyone who attends usually finds something to enjoy.
We're here with the camp, and we got told to come here, and it was a wonderful surprise. We didn't even know we were coming, and kids have had a blast. We've been enjoying the music, dancing, started with Zumba. Everyone's getting their faces painted. It's wonderful.
I got my face painted, and it's great.
People, music, everything. It's nice to go. It's nice to be here.
Well, we always find the music pretty good. I like blues and that. It's nice around here. They got the food and everything else, and it's good.
The beautiful view of Lake Superior, the Sleeping Giant. We get an amazing place. It's an amazing opportunity for people to get out and mingle and meet their friends. So that's what I'm here for.
On top of all of the activities, DeRover says the local artisans market has exploded.
In the past, we've had 4, 5, 6 artisans. Now we're actually turning them away every week because we've got over 12 to 14 that we have consistently on a weekly basis.
There are 2 more Summer in the Park nights remaining on August 7th and 14th, and DeRover is holding out hope that the weather will cooperate.
It's August, so fingers crossed that we have no more rain. I'm sure we'll be fine.
Matt Scooby, TBT News.
The 23rd annual Festa Italiana is set to go this weekend. The popular event showcases Italian music, dance, and food. Festivities include traditional, musical, and stage presentations, a fashion show, fireworks, and of course, homemade Italian food. Festa Chair Benny Melchiore says visitors can get a taste of Italy without leaving our city.
We have different dishes from different parts of Italy, different region. See, we have to understand when we talk about Italian culture, we're not talking about one culture. Italy, it's made of 21 regions, and we all have a different culture and different traditional and specialty dishes from each part of those regions. So it's nice, so you can travel all Italy without leaving Thunder Bay.
The event runs Sunday and Monday, and patrons are encouraged to bring lawn chairs. A draw for a trip for 2 to Italy will be held Monday night at 10 o'clock.